All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're breaking down some really assertive policy remarks that jump all over the map. I mean, we're talking everything from military threats against Iran to a pretty surprising debate about your 401k. So let's dive in and make sense of it all.
So, right off the bat, the tone is set with this quote. It's a pretty intense opening statement, right? A massive fleet is on its way. There's no mistaking the message there. It's a very clear signal of military pressure from the get-go.
Okay, so that brings us to our first big topic here, this whole idea of confronting Iran. And it seems to be a two-pronged approach. You've got the military threats on one hand, and then this really direct, high-stakes communication on the other.
And things get even more intense from here. The discussion kicks off with a truly stunning claim that a direct personal intervention actually stopped a mass execution in Iran. And this was supposedly just last week. The number we're given is just, wow. 837 people, described as mostly young men, were supposedly scheduled to be executed. Just think about that number for a second.
And this was the ultimatum that was apparently delivered. Super blunt. If you hang those people, you're going to be hit harder than you've ever been hit. And according to the source, what happened next? They canceled it, just an hour before it was supposed to happen.
You know, to give that threat some teeth, a past military action is brought up, specifically a strike that's described as a total obliteration of an Iranian nuclear facility. So the message is clear. These warnings have been backed up by force before. Okay, so now we're shifting gears a bit. We're moving from military force to economic force. Let's talk about the tariff strategy.
The whole conversation really hones in on this question about so-called secondary tariffs. What's the deal with penalties for any other country or company that decides to do business with Iran? And the policy is laid out in this really straightforward two-step way. It's super simple. If you do business with Iran, you get hit with a tariff. End of story.
And they get specific about their number too. It's not just some vague threat, it's a 25% tariff. And we're told this is going to happen very soon.
Now, after all that talk of threats and tariffs, the conversation takes a huge pivot. We start hearing about a totally different strategy, one that's all about diplomacy and a new global alliance. So what is this thing? It's being called the Board of Peace. The idea is its first big project will be tackling the situation in Gaza. But its work could grow from there to cover other global hotspots, and it might even team up with the UN. Apparently, a good number of countries, almost 30, are already in. And here's a kind of interesting detail about how countries join. For some, like Italy and Poland, it has to go through their legislature. But for most, the president or prime minister can just sign them up. It's also mentioned that the speaker was asked to be the chairman, a role that's described pretty remarkably as being, in theory, for life. And just when you think you know where this is going, boom, we take a hard turn. We're leaving the world stage and going straight to the American economy, specifically a debate over retirement savings and 401ks. So, at the heart of this section is an internal policy debate. On one side, you've got this idea floating around to let people use some of their 401k money for a down payment on a house. But on the other side, you have the speaker's own view, which is, no, keep that money right where it is, invested. And the stance on this is made crystal clear. The speaker says they're not a huge fan of using 401k funds for a home deposit. So that signals a pretty clear disagreement happening within the administration on this. So you might be asking, why? What's the logic here? Well, it all boils down to performance. The numbers being thrown around are that 401k accounts are up 80 to 90%, and some are even getting close to 100% return in just a year. This quote really sums up the whole argument. With 401ks doing this well, the view is that the gains from the stock market are just too good to pass up. Pulling that money out for real estate is framed as a much lower return move for the average person. Okay, so let's just do a quick recap of the four very different areas we've just covered. You've got a really hardline stance on Iran, a tough tariff policy to back it up, a new diplomatic group in the works, and a very firm opinion on how to handle retirement savings here at home. And that leaves us with a big question to think about. We've seen this mix of confrontation, economic punishment, and then also global cooperation, all happening at the same time, alongside a very specific idea about domestic finances. So how do all these different pieces fit together? What does pursuing all of these strategies at once really signal about a broader philosophy of governing?